Lakewood, Colorado, was the kind of town where kids still rode their bikes until dusk, and neighbors waved at each other from their porches. The community was tight-knit, the crime was minimal, and the afternoons felt as predictable as the sunrise. 12-year-old Emily Carter didn't mind the routine. She liked the quiet rhythm of her days. Go to school, walk home, do her homework, feed her pet rabbit, and sometimes visit Rex, the retired canine who lived next door. Rex wasn't just any dog. He was a hulking German shepherd with a faded police collar and calm, intelligent eyes. Everyone in the neighborhood knew him, but Emily had a special bond. Rex belonged to Officer James Daniels, a career cop who lived 2 houses down. After Rex had retired from active duty due to a leg injury, Daniels had kept him as a companion. Emily had fallen in love with the dog the first time she saw him. Most of the neighborhood kids were a little intimidated by his size and silence. But not Emily. From the first day, she greeted him without fear, feeding him bits of apple through the fence and sneaking him peanut butter dog biscuits. Over time, Rex began to wait by the fence when school let out, tail wagging slowly whenever she approached. That Friday afternoon in May started out no different. The bell rang at 3:15 p.m. at Timber Ridge Middle School, and students poured into the streets like always. Emily waved to her best friend Nora and turned down the sidewalk toward home. Her backpack bounced against her back, and the sun cast a golden light over the pavement. She hummed to herself as she walked, thinking about the weekend. Her mom had promised to bake cookies, and her dad was going to let her pick a movie for Friday night. The road home forked into 2 options. The long way circled around the neighborhood streets. The short way, Timber Trail, cut through a wooded patch that was quieter and quicker. Emily had been told to avoid the trail unless she was with someone. Her parents had warned her. Not because the area was dangerous, but because the trail was poorly lit and isolated, but it was still broad daylight. The sky was clear, the birds chirped, and Rex had somehow appeared at her side just as she reached the trail entrance. Maybe he had slipped out of Officer Daniels' yard again. It wasn't the first time. Emily smiled and bent down to scratch behind his ears. "You following me, tough guy?" she whispered. Rex licked her hand in reply. His leash was nowhere to be seen, but he stayed close as she stepped into the shaded woods. The trail curved gently, lined by pine trees and crunching leaves. It was quiet, not eerily so, but still enough that Emily could hear the sound of her own footsteps and the occasional chirp of a chickadee overhead. Rex walked beside her, ears flicking at every small sound, alert or relaxed. About halfway through, she felt it, the sense that something was off. A rustle behind her. Not like a squirrel or a bird. Heavier, closer. She paused and looked over her shoulder. Heart skipping. Nothing. Rex stiffened. He stopped walking and let out a low, deep growl. His head turned slightly toward the left, into the trees. Emily followed. His gaze, her heart pounding now. Then, crack, a twig snapped. Before she could process it, a man stepped out of the shadows between 2 trees. He wore a gray hoodie pulled low over his face, and his hands were clenched. There was something in his right hand, dark, metallic. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The man lunged. And everything changed in an instant. Emily didn't scream. At first, she couldn't. Her voice caught in her throat as the man rushed toward her, the glint of something in his hand flashing in the dim light. Instinct told her to run. She turned to bolt back the way she came, but he was fast. Too fast. She barely got 3 steps before a crushing blow landed across the side of her head. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Her legs gave out beneath her. The ground rushed up to meet her in a dizzying blur of brown and green. She lay still, dazed, her cheek pressed into the dirt. blood dripping into her right eye. Her backpack had fallen open beside her, school papers fluttering in the breeze. For a terrifying moment, she thought this was it, that this man was going to finish whatever he started, but he didn't. Because Rex was no longer by her side. He was airborne. The sound that came from the dog was not a bark. It was a snarl, raw, primal, and furious. He struck the man from the side with all his weight, knocking him off balance. The man stumbled, arms flailing, but somehow managed to stay upright. Rex circled back, hackles raised and teeth bared. "Get off me!" the man shouted, swinging his arm. He tried to hit Rex with the object in his hand, a rusted tire iron, but Rex ducked it, darting forward again. This time he went for the leg, his jaws clamping down hard. The man screamed and kicked wildly. Rex yelped as a boot connected with his ribs, but he didn't let go. Emily, half-conscious and barely able to lift her head, could make out the blur of the fight, the snarls, the curses, the chaos. Then, just as quickly as it had started, it ended. The man tore free and ran, limping badly and clutching his leg. Rex gave one final bark, but didn't chase him. Instead, he turned and ran straight back to Emily, whining, licking her face, nudging her shoulder with his nose. She tried to sit up, but pain screamed through her skull. Her vision swam. Her arm, slick with blood, trembled as she reached up and grabbed the fur behind Rex's neck. "Good. Boy. She slurred. She was slipping fast, in and out of awareness. Rex seemed to know. He sniffed at her wounds, then did something that could only be described as deliberate. He began to pull. He took the edge of her jacket sleeve in his mouth, just gently enough not to cause more pain, and tugged. When she didn't move, he adjusted. His grip gave another urgent pull. Emily groaned. Her legs dragged along the dirt as Rex moved backward, step by step, pulling her toward the trailhead. It was slow, excruciatingly slow, but steady. Every few steps, he paused to check her face, nudging her shoulder again. Then, with renewed determination, he continued. The trail wasn't flat. It twisted, dipped, and rose with small hills. At one point, they hit a patch of thick brush. Rex circled, found an easier path, and resumed pulling. Minutes passed, maybe 20, maybe more, somewhere along the way. Emily lost consciousness entirely, but Rex didn't stop. When they reached the sidewalk, a few cars passed. A jogger in headphones ran by on the opposite side of the street, never even glancing over. Rex barked, once, twice, but no one heard. He kept moving. The hospital was now visible in the distance, its blue and white emergency sign glowing like a beacon. Rex picked up his pace. He was panting, exhausted, limping slightly, but still going. When he reached the sliding glass doors of Lakewood Memorial Hospital, they opened with a soft hiss, triggered by the motion of his powerful body. He stepped inside, dragging Emily after him, limp, bloodied, barely breathing, and the emergency room, busy, chaotic, and loud, fell silent. The automatic doors parted with a gentle whoosh, and Rex stepped into the emergency room like a soldier on a mission. The receptionist looked up, half distracted, and dropped her coffee. "Oh my God!" she screamed. A nurse near the triage station gasped and dropped her clipboard. A child, bloodied, unconscious, was being dragged across the lobby floor by a dog. The sight was jarring, surreal, like something from a dream. For a split second, panic bloomed. "Get security!" Someone shouted. "Is that dog attacking her?" Yelled another. A security guard at the far end of the lobby drew his taser and rushed forward, but the charge died on his face the moment he got closer. Rex wasn't attacking. He was saving. The dog let go of Emily's jacket and immediately stood over her, whimpering, licking her cheek, pawing at her shoulder as if begging her to wake up. Her face was pale, streaked with blood and dirt. Her lips were cracked. The arm beneath her hoodie was bent at a strange angle. Her chest rose and fell, barely perceptible. A nurse named Lauren, ignoring the chaos, knelt beside the girl and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. "She's got a pulse. We need a gurney now." The ER snapped into motion. Dr. Karen Lee, the trauma lead, arrived seconds later. "What happened?" she asked, pulling gloves over her hands. "No idea," Lauren said breathlessly. "But this dog, he brought her in. Like, he pulled her." "Pulled her?" Dr. Lee glanced at Rex, who hadn't moved an inch. He stood stiff and tense, eyes locked on the girl. His sides heaved from exhaustion, but he stayed right there, guarding her as if the woods might come spilling into the hospital any moment. 2 orderlies rushed over with a gurney. As they gently lifted Emily onto it, Rex gave a low whine, trying to climb up after her. "Easy," Lauren whispered, stepping in front of him and holding her hands out. "It's okay, boy. We're helping her." To everyone's surprise, Rex sat down. He watched as the doctors wheeled Emily into the trauma bay, then stood and began pacing in front of the doors. Officer James Daniels, his handler, arrived 20 minutes later after receiving the emergency call. His squad car skidded into the ambulance bay, and he rushed inside, heart thundering in his chest. When he saw Rex, bloodied, limping, eyes still trained on the closed trauma doors, his breath caught in his throat. "Rex!" he shouted, jogging forward. Rex turned, gave one weak wag of his tail, and collapsed. Daniels dropped to his knees beside him. "What happened to you? Jesus... Lauren approached, wiping her hands on her scrubs. "He brought her in. She would have died out there. Your dog, he saved her life." Daniels blinked, stunned. "Emily Carter? That's the Carter's kid, right?" She nodded. "She was unconscious. Skull trauma. Deep laceration near her ribs. It looked like she was dragged through brush, but not attacked by the dog. Your boy brought her in, like he knew what he was doing." Daniels stared down at Rex, who was resting now, still panting hard. His fur was matted with blood, some his, most of it likely Emily's. His nose twitched. He looked up at Daniels with tired, knowing eyes. "You went back to work." "Huh?" Daniels said softly, running a hand along the dog's side. Rex gave a faint groan and rested his head on Daniels' knee. Inside the trauma bay, Emily's vitals were being stabilized. Dr. Lee worked with careful urgency, amazed that the girl had lasted this long. "If this kid had stayed in those woods 10 more minutes," she muttered, "she'd be dead." Nobody could believe what had happened. A dog had walked into the E with a bleeding girl in tow, and what had seemed unthinkable was now undeniable. This wasn't just instinct. It was loyalty. It was training. It was love. By morning, the story had spread like wildfire. It started with a single photo. A hospital nurse snapped it just after Emily was wheeled away. Rex, bloody and exhausted, standing in the middle of the ER lobby, looking straight at the trauma room doors. The photo was shared on social media by a paramedic. Captioned only, "This dog walked into the E dragging an unconscious girl." No one knew what to say. Within hours, local news stations picked it up, and national outlets. By sunrise, headlines flashed across screens. Retired canine saves 12-year-old girl in heroic rescue. German Shepherd walks into ER. What he was dragging left everyone speechless. Guardian angel with 4 legs. Back in Lakewood, Emily's parents were shattered. Susan Carter had arrived at the hospital within an hour of the incident, hysterical and trembling. She hadn't heard from Emily after school, and when police knocked on her door, her knees nearly gave out. She sat beside Emily's bed now, clutching her daughter's hand, whispering promises through sobs. Her husband, Mark, stood near the window, his hands shaking as he stared out at the rising sun. "Who would do this?" he whispered, voice cracking. "She's a child. She's our little girl." Susan didn't answer. Emily's face was pale, bruised, stitched with a gash on her forehead had been cleaned. She hadn't opened her eyes. But the machine said she was fighting. Down the hall, Rex lay on a blanket provided by the hospital staff. Officer Daniels hadn't left his side. He refused to go home. Lauren told a journalist who'd shown up to ask questions. Wouldn't move. Wouldn't eat. He just kept looking at the door, like he was waiting for permission to enter again. Daniels had finally convinced Rex to lie down after the vet tech bandaged his leg and cleaned a few bruised ribs. Nothing broken, thank God. But it was clear Rex was in pain. Physical, yes, but something more. He was restless, watching every doctor that walked by as if silently pleading for news. He's never let go of a case, Daniels said quietly, sitting on the floor beside him. Guess this one's no different. Police detectives had already started their investigation. The description Emily might have given was still unknown. She hadn't woken up yet. But there were footprints along the timber trail. Signs of a struggle. A torn gray hoodie snagged on a bush. And deep in the woods, a tire iron. Half covered in blood and dirt. The community response was instant and powerful. Neighbors showed up at the hospital with cards, flowers, and dog treats. Dozens of messages poured into the Lakewood Police Department. Messages of gratitude, awe, and hope. A local child taped a note to the EO doors. "Thank you, Rex, you're the bravest dog in the world." By noon, the hospital's front lobby had turned into a makeshift tribute. Someone printed out the viral photo of Rex and framed it. A nurse placed it beside a bouquet and a single tag. Hero. But the true moment of hope came later that afternoon. Susan sat by Emily's side as always, whispering softly and brushing the hair back from her forehead. A monitor beeped slowly in the background, steady and calm. Then, Emily's fingers twitched. Susan gasped and leaned forward. "Emily?" she whispered. "Baby?" The girl's eyelids fluttered, then opened just a crack. Her lips moved. "Rex." Susan broke into tears. She gripped her daughter's hand and called for the nurse, her voice breaking with relief and disbelief. Down the hall, Daniels heard the commotion and stood. Rex was already up, ears perked, tail lifting slightly. Something had changed. He could feel it. "She's awake," Daniels said, more to himself than anyone else. "She's gonna be okay." Rex let out one soft bark and pressed his head into Daniel's leg. The nightmare wasn't over. The attacker was still out there. But Emily was alive. And thanks to a dog who had once served his city and never stopped, the town of Lakewood had a reason to believe in miracles again. Detective Carla Nunez stared down at the evidence bag in her hand. Inside was the blood-smeared tire iron, its jagged edges still caked with dirt from the trail. The morning sun filtered through the police precinct windows, casting long shadows. Across the crime board, now covered in photos, maps, and strings of red twine, she pinned the bag to the board beside the torn hoodie they'd found. Gray, generic, size large. No wallet. No phone. But inside the front pocket had been the game changer. A crumpled receipt from a gas station on 4th and Main. Time-stamped just 3 hours before the attack. Surveillance? She asked her partner. Detective Rowe nodded. Already pulled. It caught a glimpse of him at the checkout. Hoodie's up, but his face turns just enough to get a profile. Rowe tapped a button on the laptop in front of them. The grainy footage played. A man in the same gray hoodie, average build, stubble across his jawline, buying a single bottle of water and a pack of gum. His eyes flicked toward the camera for a heartbeat. Then he turned and walked out. Facial recognition pulled a match. Rowe continued. Name's Darren Cole, 32. Arrest record out of Arizona burglary, assault. Did time. Paroled last year. No fixed address, but last known location puts him in Denver. He's been bouncing around shelters. Nunez leaned back in her chair, thinking, why Emily? She muttered, why target a kid on a nature trail? Rowe shrugged grimly. Opportunity? Wrong place, wrong time? Maybe he panicked, but that tire iron wasn't for scaring anyone. It was meant to do damage. The words sat like ice in the room. Across town, Emily rested in her hospital bed, her head carefully bandaged, her face a patchwork of healing bruises. She was awake but weak, speaking only in short phrases, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Doctors said she'd need weeks to fully recover, physically and emotionally. Officer Daniels sat with her, Rex curled faithfully at his feet. So you said he came out of the woods? Daniels asked gently, not pushing too hard. Emily nodded. He was ... watching, before I saw him. Did he say anything to you? Emily frowned. No, he didn't talk. Just ... looked mad. Then he ran at me. Rex lifted his head slightly, as if remembering it too. Daniels exhaled. You know you're very brave, right? Emily gave a tiny smile. Not as brave as Rex. In the corridor, Dr. Lee stepped aside to speak with Emily's parents. She's progressing. Her reflexes are good. Her memory is mostly intact. But she's having night terrors. That's expected. She's alive, Susan said, her voice thick. That's what matters. Mark looked toward the room, jaw tight. When are you catching this guy? Detectives are working on it, Dr. Lee replied. But it's a matter of time now. He left too many traces. Back at the precinct, Nunez got the call. Darren Cole had been spotted. A witness at a truck stop near Arvada recognized him. From the police sketch aired on the news. Side he looked nervous as hell, pacing near the back exit before slipping into a stolen black sedan and heading west on Highway 70. Nunez grabbed her coat. We've got him on the move. Set up. Roadblocks. I want eyes in the air and patrols on every off-ramp. That evening, the Lakewood Police Department held a press conference. Cameras flashed as the chief stepped up to the podium. We have identified the suspect involved in the attack on Emily Carter. His name is Darren Cole. He is considered armed and dangerous. If you see this individual, do not approach. Call 911. Immediately. At the hospital, Emily watched the broadcast from her room, her hand resting gently on Rex's head. She turned to her parents and whispered, He's still out there, isn't he? Her father nodded solemnly. Rex didn't growl, but his tail stiffened. Something in him knew. The man who tried to hurt his girl was still free, but not for long. Asterisk. The sky over Colorado stretched wide and cold as police cruisers tore down Highway 70 in pursuit of Darren Cole. Every available officer had been mobilized. Helicopters hovered above the freeway, their searchlights cutting through dusk like twin beacons. In the precinct, Detective Nunez had maps spread across the table. He's smart, she muttered. He's not staying on the main roads. He's gonna duck into one of these feeder towns and disappear. Unless we corner him first, Rose said, adjusting the zoom on a traffic cam feed. He hasn't dumped the car yet. He's getting sloppy. Meanwhile, back at Lakewood Memorial, Emily had begun to walk, shakily, with assistance, but upright. Her legs trembled beneath her hospital gown as she moved slowly down the hallway, gripping a nurse's hand and holding on to the IV stand. But what kept her upright wasn't adrenaline. It was Rex. He trotted beside her, his pace gentle, alert. A leash looped loosely from his collar, but he needed no pulling. His eyes stayed locked on Emily, every step measured to match hers. Each nurse who passed by smiled. Even the doctors stopped for a moment to take in the sight. A girl who was left for dead in the woods. Walking again, escorted by her rescuer. "You too are something else," one orderly whispered. When they returned to her room, Emily sat on the bed and leaned into Rex's side. "I wish I could tell you thank you the right way," she murmured. Doc Rex let out a soft grunt and licked her wrist. Officer Daniels, standing in the doorway, cleared his throat. "If you're up for it, the detectives have one more question." Emily nodded, sitting straighter. Nunez entered the room with a printout of a grainy face from the gas station footage. "Emily," she said gently, "take your time. Is this him?" Emily stared at the image for several long seconds. Her mouth opened slowly. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the man who hurt me," Nunez nodded. "That's all we needed." "You did great." Across the county line, a state trooper spotted the black sedan in an abandoned parking lot outside of Eagle Ridge. The interior was empty, the engine cold. But the trunk had something damning. A stolen wallet, fake ID, and a trail of fresh blood that led toward the tree line. "We think he hurt himself," one officer said into the radio. "Might have busted his leg. Blood drops suggest he's on foot now." By nightfall, search teams with dogs, drones, and infrared were combing the hills, but the suspect was proving slippery. A false alarm came from a barn 2 miles away. Then another call from a hiker who thought she saw movement near a creek. Still nothing. Daniels stood outside the hospital entrance, listening to the updates through his radio. "He's wounded. That makes him desperate." Rex paced at his side, tail rigid, head low. His ears kept twitching toward the wind, as if some sense honed by training or instinct, was warning him. Daniels crouched down. "You're still on this, huh?" Rex looked up at him with sharp eyes. "You want to track him again?" It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a whine. But the shift in Rex's posture said everything. Daniels nodded slowly. "All right. Let's go find him." He turned to Nunez, who was already walking toward them with a tactical vest. "You serious?" she asked, seeing the K9's focus. Daniels clipped on Rex's harness. "I've worked with this dog for 5 years. When he's ready, you don't question it. You follow." Nunez didn't argue. Within minutes, a small unit was assembled. 3 officers, Daniels, and Rex. They headed toward Eagle Ridge, where the suspect had last been seen. Doc Rex leapt from the SUV before it stopped rolling. Nose to the ground, he took 3 long sniffs, then bolted eastward into the brush. Daniels ran after him. "He's got something." And as the moon rose above the trees, one thing was clear. The hunt was no longer about justice, that it was personal. Rex tore through the woods like a phantom, nose low, paws churning the soil with practiced speed. He weaved between trees and brush, tail raised, body tense. Daniels followed, rifle strapped across his chest, sweat beading under his vest. "Rex! Slow down," he called, but Rex didn't stop. He was locked in. The trail was fresh. Blood, fear, footprints in the damp earth. Every scent told a story, and Rex was reading it like a seasoned tracker. This wasn't just work. It was instinct. It was protection. It was vengeance. The team moved through the trees behind them. Detective Nunez, flashlight sweeping hand on her holster. "He's definitely close," she muttered. "Rex is on fire." 10 minutes in, they found the makeshift camp. Just off a dry creek bed sat a torn tarp, a discarded granola wrapper, and a stained hoodie, the same one Emily had described. Next to it, fresh tracks led deeper into the woods. The trail sloped downward toward a ravine. "He's bleeding," Daniel said, shining his light on a slick patch of red. He's limping now. Probably twisted something on the run. Which makes him more dangerous, Nunez added. Cornered animals lash. Out. Then came the sound. A twig snapped, sharp and unnatural. The group froze. Rex turned instantly, ears pointed, body coiled like a spring. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Daniels clicked off his flashlight. He's here. Then a voice, hoarse, angry and bitter, sliced through the silence. Stay back. It shouted. They ducked behind a fallen log. Ahead, just 30 feet away, Darren Cole staggered into view, a pistol shaking in his hand. His left leg dragged behind him, useless. His jacket was torn, face filthy and bloodied. He looked like a man unraveling. You come any closer and I'll shoot. He yelled. Don't think I won't. Daniels rose slightly. Darren, it's over. You're hurt. Drop the weapon and we'll get you help. Help? Cole laughed bitterly. No one helped me. That girl screamed. I didn't even touch her yet. But that damn dog came out of nowhere. Daniel's fists clenched. You bashed a 12-year-old over the head and left her to die. That's not a misunderstanding. I panicked. Cole barked. I didn't mean to. She just wouldn't stop screaming. From behind the log, Rex growled louder. And then, without command, without hesitation, he lunged. Rex, no! Daniels shouted, but it was too late. The German. Shepard shot through the trees like a rocket, teeth bared. Cole screamed and raised the gun. One shot fired, missed. Rex hit him full force, tackling him backward onto the rocky soil. The pistol flew from Cole's hand. He struggled, grunting, swinging his elbows, but Rex pinned him, jaws clamped down. On the man's forearm, growling with the force of fury long held back, Daniels and Nunez rushed forward, shouting commands. Nunez kicked the pistol away, while Daniels pulled Rex back, voice sharp. Off, Rex, off! Rex obeyed, barely, panting. Bleeding from a graze on his side, he backed away, but kept his eyes locked on Cole. The suspect groaned, clutching his mangled arm. You should have killed me, he spat. Would have been easier. Daniels looked down at him, disgusted. You don't get easy. Nunez cuffed him, pressing a knee into his back. You get trial. You get prison. Daniels turned to Rex, who limped toward him. He dropped to one knee, wrapped his arms around the dog, and whispered, You did it. You brought him down. Rex licked his face once and rested against him, body trembling from exertion. The team called in the arrest. EMTs were dispatched to treat the suspect. A helicopter hovered above the ravine, ready to extract as the officers regrouped. One thing was clear. This case was no longer a mystery. It was justice, delivered by tooth and claw, by loyalty, and love. By a dog who refused to let evil win. The hospital corridors felt quieter than ever. The buzz of the emergency room had faded into a steady hum of recovery. Outside, the sun cast soft golden light through the windows, dappling the floor with warmth. Inside, Emily Carter lay in her bed, her body healing, but her spirit still fragile. Rex sat faithfully by her side, his fur still dusted with dirt, and a faint scab forming on his flank where the gunshot grazed him during the arrest. The bond between them had deepened beyond words, a silent conversation of trust, gratitude, and unbreakable loyalty. Emily reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and ran them through Rex's soft coat. You saved me, she whispered. You're my hero. Rex responded with a gentle nuzzle, resting his head on her lap. The door opened softly, and Detective Carla Nunez stepped inside, her face softened by relief. Behind her followed Officer Daniels, carrying a small envelope. We got the warrant. Today, Carla said quietly, sitting beside Emily's bed, Darren Cole confessed. He's been charged with attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Emily nodded slowly, tears brimming in her eyes. I'm glad he won't hurt anyone else. Daniels handed her the envelope. This came from the DA's office. It's a letter from the city, thanking you for your bravery. Emily opened the letter with trembling hands. Inside was a message of gratitude, praising her courage and Rex's extraordinary heroism. It spoke of a community that stood behind her, of a spirit that refused to be broken. Susan, Emily's mother, entered then, carrying a bouquet of fresh flowers. Her eyes glistened as she approached. We're so proud of you, she said softly, brushing a stray strand of hair from Emily's face. Mark, her father, followed, his usually stoic expression softened by emotion. You're stronger than we ever imagined. Emily looked around the room, her family, her protectors, her friends, and felt a swell of hope she hadn't dared to believe in since that terrible day. Weeks passed. Physical therapy sessions helped Emily regain strength, her steps growing surer each day. But the scars on her heart required a different kind of healing. Therapy sessions with a counselor introduced gentle conversations about fear, trauma, and resilience. Emily learned to speak again of the night in the woods, no longer haunted by silence. Rex remained her constant companion, his presence a balm that words could never replace. Wherever she went, therapy, school, home, Rex was there, silent, protective, endlessly patient. The local news ran a special segment, showcasing the unlikely heroics of a K9 who saved a young girl's life. The story touched hearts across the city, sparking donations for therapy dogs and raising awareness about the bond between humans and their loyal companions. One afternoon, Emily sat in the backyard with Rex, sunlight filtering through the trees. She threw a ball, and Rex chased it with eager enthusiasm. Her laughter rang clear, bright as the spring breeze. Do you think he'll ever come back? Emily asked quietly. Susan sat beside her, shaking her head gently. No, sweetheart. Darren's behind bars. The law is on your side now. Emily smiled, a weight lifting from her chest. And I have Rex. Rex patted over and rested his head on her knee. A silent promise, a lifetime of devotion. That evening, as stars sparkled above, Emily lay in bed with Rex curled at her feet. She whispered a thank you to the universe, for survival, for love, and for a dog who walked into an AI one fateful night and changed everything. Because sometimes the greatest heroes don't wear capes, they wear collars.